Denmark rarely appears as a geopolitical energy giant, yet over the past decade it has quietly positioned itself at the center of Europe's renewable transformation. Instead of relying on fossil fuel exports or massive domestic markets, Denmark invested heavily in offshore wind technology, grid innovation, and cross-border energy cooperation. The proposed artificial energy island in the North Sea represents the boldest expression of this strategy, aiming to collect electricity from surrounding wind farms and distribute it across multiple European countries. Supporters describe the project as a turning point that could stabilize power prices and accelerate the continent's shift away from fossil fuels. Critics, however, question whether the enormous cost and engineering complexity will deliver returns fast enough to justify the investment. Denmark's approach reflects a broader European push toward energy independence following years of volatile gas markets and geopolitical uncertainty. By focusing on renewable infrastructure rather than traditional resource extraction, the country hopes to transform geography into strategic advantage. Its strong maritime engineering sector and experience managing offshore projects provide technical credibility, while partnerships with neighboring nations spread financial risk. The artificial island is not simply an energy project, but a symbol of how smaller countries can shape continental policy through innovation and coordination. Understanding Denmark's rise requires looking beyond headlines toward the systems, linking technology, infrastructure, and regional cooperation into a new model of energy leadership emerging across Europe today. What looks like a single island project may actually signal the beginning of a new era where energy power flows from networks instead of traditional resource empires, shaping the future balance of Europe's economy. And influence globally as governments, businesses, and citizens adapt to a rapidly changing energy landscape, driven by innovation, security concerns, and long-term climate strategy decisions, reshaping Europe's future economic direction profoundly today. Denmark's emergence as an energy leader did not begin with the artificial island project alone, but with decades of strategic investment in wind power technology and policy innovation. After the oil crises of the 1970s exposed the vulnerability of energy imports, Denmark gradually shifted its national strategy toward renewable independence. Early government support encouraged research partnerships between universities, manufacturers, and energy companies, allowing Danish firms to become pioneers in offshore wind turbine design. Over time, this ecosystem created a competitive industry capable of exporting technology across Europe and beyond. Offshore wind farms expanded along Denmark's coastlines, transforming the country into one of the world's most experienced operators in marine energy infrastructure. This long-term focus allowed Denmark to develop supply chains, engineering expertise, and regulatory frameworks that now support ambitious projects like the proposed energy island. Unlike countries that attempt rapid energy transitions without established industrial bases, Denmark's approach reflects incremental growth supported by consistent policy direction. Wind power became integrated into national identity, influencing urban planning, education, and environmental policy. The artificial island represents the next step in scaling this model, moving from individual wind farms toward interconnected energy hubs, capable of distributing power internationally. By linking renewable production with cross-border transmission lines, Denmark aims to strengthen Europe's energy resilience while reducing dependence on fossil fuels. The strategy also reflects broader economic goals, positioning Danish companies as leaders in green infrastructure projects that may shape global energy markets in the coming decades. Understanding this history reveals that Denmark's rise as an energy power is not a sudden transformation, but the result of sustained commitment to innovation and cooperation. The artificial island may capture attention today, yet it stands on decades of quiet investment that turned wind power into a cornerstone of Denmark's long-term economic strategy. The concept of an artificial energy island represents a major shift in how renewable power is produced and distributed across Europe. Traditionally, offshore wind farms send electricity directly to nearby coastal grids, limiting how far energy can travel without complex infrastructure upgrades. Denmark's plan reimagines this system by creating a centralized hub in the North Sea where multiple wind farms connect to a single platform before transmitting power to several countries simultaneously. This design transforms the island into a hybrid between a power plant and an international energy exchange point. By linking grids across borders, the project aims to balance fluctuations in wind production, allowing electricity to flow where demand is highest at any given time. Supporters argue that such hubs could stabilize energy markets by reducing price volatility and improving resilience during supply disruptions. The artificial island also introduces new engineering challenges, including construction in harsh marine environments and the integration of advanced transmission technologies capable of handling large energy volumes. Denmark's experience with offshore infrastructure provides an advantage, yet the scale of the project remains unprecedented. Cooperation between governments, private companies, and energy regulators becomes essential because the island's success depends on synchronized policies across multiple jurisdictions. Financial considerations add further complexity as investors weigh long-term environmental benefits against immediate costs and uncertain returns. Despite these challenges, the concept reflects a broader European vision of interconnected renewable networks replacing isolated national grids. The artificial island therefore symbolizes more than technological ambition. It represents a new model of regional energy cooperation shaped by climate goals and geopolitical realities. Understanding this transformation reveals how infrastructure design can influence not only energy production, but also economic relationships between countries. A single island in the North Sea may redefine how electricity moves across borders, turning renewable energy into a shared European system rather than a national resource. Denmark's artificial energy island also reflects a strategic response to Europe's shifting geopolitical energy landscape, particularly after years of dependence on imported fossil fuels exposed economic vulnerabilities. Energy crises across the continent highlighted how supply disruptions could influence inflation, industrial output, and political stability almost overnight. By investing in large-scale renewable infrastructure, Denmark aims to strengthen Europe's energy security while reducing reliance on volatile external markets. The island project is designed not only to generate electricity, but to function as a stabilizing node within a broader European grid, allowing countries to share surplus energy during shortages. This level of integration requires deep political cooperation, as participating nations must align regulations, pricing mechanisms, and transmission standards. Denmark's relatively small size becomes an advantage because it can act as a neutral coordinator between larger economies seeking reliable energy partnerships. The project also enhances Denmark's geopolitical relevance by positioning the country at the center of Europe's renewable transition. Energy diplomacy increasingly revolves around infrastructure rather than natural resources, and the island symbolizes a shift from traditional energy power defined by oil and gas toward influence built on technology and connectivity. Critics argue that relying heavily on renewable networks introduces new vulnerabilities related to weather variability and infrastructure security. Supporters counter that diversification across multiple wind farms and interconnected grids reduces overall risk compared to centralized fossil fuel systems. Denmark's strategy highlights how energy policy intersects with international relations, turning engineering decisions into instruments of regional cooperation. The artificial island therefore represents more than a technological innovation. It becomes a platform for redefining Europe's energy alliances in an era shaped by climate goals and geopolitical uncertainty. As Europe searches for energy independence, Denmark's island project reveals how infrastructure itself can become a powerful tool of geopolitical influence. Financing a project as ambitious as a multi-billion-dollar artificial energy island introduces significant economic and political challenges that extend far beyond engineering design. The estimated investment reflects not only construction costs, but also the development of transmission cables, offshore substations, and long-term maintenance systems capable of operating in harsh marine environments. Denmark plans to share financial responsibility with private investors and partner countries, reducing risk while encouraging collaboration across Europe's energy markets. Public funding plays a key role during early stages because infrastructure of this scale requires long planning horizons that private companies alone may hesitate to support. Investors evaluate future electricity demand, carbon pricing policies, and technological innovation when assessing potential returns. Rising interest rates and shifting energy prices add uncertainty, forcing policymakers to balance environmental goals with fiscal responsibility. Supporters argue that early investment in renewable hubs could lower long-term energy costs by stabilizing supply and reducing dependence on imported fuels. Critics worry that cost overruns or slower than expected demand could strain public finances. The project's economic viability depends on coordinated regulation across multiple countries, ensuring that power trading systems allow efficient distribution of electricity generated offshore. Denmark's experience with public-private partnerships provides a framework for managing such complexity, yet the scale of the artificial island requires new models of cooperation. The financial structure also influences global perception, as successful implementation could attract international investors seeking exposure to large-scale renewable infrastructure. Understanding the economic dimension reveals how energy transformation relies not only on technology, but on carefully designed funding strategies that align environmental ambition with market realities shaping Europe's future energy landscape. Behind the vision of a renewable superhub lies a financial experiment that could determine whether massive green infrastructure becomes the next engine of economic growth. Engineering an artificial island designed to manage gigawatts of renewable energy presents technical challenges unlike any previous offshore project. The North Sea environment is known for strong winds, powerful waves, and shifting seabed conditions, requiring innovative construction techniques to ensure long-term stability. Engineers must design foundations capable of supporting heavy electrical infrastructure while minimizing environmental impact on marine ecosystems. Unlike traditional oil platforms built for extraction, the energy island functions as a hub that collects power from multiple wind farms and redistributes it across international transmission networks. High-voltage direct current cables play a central role in this design, allowing electricity to travel long distances with minimal energy loss. The integration of such technology demands precise coordination between engineers, energy regulators, and environmental agencies. Maintenance becomes another critical factor, because offshore installations must withstand harsh weather for decades without frequent manual intervention. Autonomous monitoring systems and advanced sensors help detect structural stress or equipment failures before they escalate into major problems. The project also pushes innovation in modular construction, where large components are assembled on shore and transported to the site for installation, reducing risks associated with building in open water. Environmental considerations remain central to planning, with strict regulations aimed at protecting marine habitats and migratory patterns. Denmark's experience with offshore wind provides valuable expertise, yet scaling up to an artificial island introduces complexities that extend beyond previous projects. The engineering dimension highlights how renewable energy infrastructure increasingly resembles large-scale industrial systems rather than isolated power plants. Understanding these technical challenges reveals that Denmark's vision depends on combining innovation with resilience, ensuring the island operates reliably in one of Europe's most demanding maritime environments. Building an island in the open sea is not just about generating power, but about redefining what modern energy infrastructure can achieve. Denmark's artificial energy island is also closely tied to the rapid evolution of Europe's electricity grid, which must transform from a collection of national systems into a more flexible and interconnected network. Renewable energy sources such as wind and solar generate power unevenly depending on weather conditions, creating fluctuations that traditional grids were not designed to handle. The energy island aims to act as a balancing hub, allowing electricity to flow dynamically between countries based on supply and demand. This requires advanced grid management technology capable of monitoring energy production in real time and adjusting transmission routes accordingly. Cross-border cooperation becomes essential because electricity markets operate under different regulatory frameworks and pricing models. Denmark works with neighboring countries to develop standardized rules that enable seamless energy exchange, reducing barriers that previously limited international grid integration. The project also encourages investment in energy storage solutions, including hydrogen production and large-scale battery systems, which help stabilize supply during periods of low wind output. By connecting multiple energy systems, the island transforms renewable generation into a shared European resource rather than a localized asset. Critics caution that increased interdependence may expose countries to new risks if technical failures or cyber threats disrupt interconnected grids. Supporters argue that diversification across multiple energy sources and regions strengthens resilience compared to isolated national networks. Denmark's role as a coordinator highlights how smaller countries can influence regional infrastructure planning through innovation and diplomacy. The transformation of Europe's grid represents a shift from centralized fossil fuel power plants toward distributed renewable networks, with the artificial island serving as a symbol of this transition. The true power of Denmark's energy island may lie not in the electricity it generates, but in how it rewires the entire European grid into a connected system. The rise of Denmark as an energy leader is also tied to its strong industrial ecosystem, particularly companies that specialize in offshore wind technology, maritime engineering, and renewable innovation. Danish firms have spent decades refining turbine design, installation methods, and maintenance systems that operate efficiently in challenging sea conditions. This industrial base allows Denmark to move beyond simply hosting wind farms toward exporting expertise worldwide. The artificial energy island strengthens this ecosystem by creating new demand for advanced engineering services, digital monitoring platforms, and sustainable construction solutions. Universities and research institutions collaborate closely with private companies, turning large infrastructure projects into laboratories for innovation. This partnership encourages the development of new materials, energy storage technologies, and grid optimization tools that may influence global renewable markets. Denmark's approach demonstrates how national policy can align industrial strategy with climate goals, turning environmental investment into economic opportunity. Small and medium-sized companies benefit from participating in complex supply chains connected to offshore energy projects, expanding employment and technical skills across the country. Critics sometimes warn that heavy reliance on renewable industries could expose the economy to market fluctuations. Yet diversification across engineering, technology, and services helps mitigate this risk. The artificial island becomes more than a power hub. It functions as a catalyst for technological advancement and industrial growth. Denmark's success illustrates how renewable infrastructure can shape economic identity, positioning the country as a leader in green innovation rather than a follower in traditional energy markets. Understanding this industrial dimension reveals that the energy island represents both an environmental initiative and a strategic investment in long-term economic competitiveness. Behind the turbines and cables lies an industrial strategy, turning Denmark's renewable ambitions into a global engine of technological influence. Environmental sustainability plays a central role in Denmark's vision for becoming a renewable energy leader, shaping both the design and long-term goals of the artificial energy island. Unlike traditional energy projects focused primarily on extraction or generation, the island aims to integrate environmental protection with large-scale infrastructure development. Marine ecosystems in the North Sea require careful monitoring, as construction activities can affect wildlife habitats, fishing routes, and ocean biodiversity. Danish planners emphasize minimizing ecological disruption through advanced mapping technologies and adaptive construction methods that reduce underwater noise and seabed disturbance. Renewable energy production itself contributes to broader climate goals by lowering carbon emissions and supporting Europe's transition toward cleaner power sources. However, balancing environmental protection with industrial expansion remains a complex challenge. Wind farms alter seascapes and may influence bird migration patterns, requiring continuous research and adjustment. Denmark collaborates with environmental organizations and scientific institutions to monitor long-term ecological impacts, demonstrating how sustainability can become an integral part of infrastructure planning rather than an afterthought. Public support for renewable energy remains strong within the country, reflecting decades of environmental awareness and political consensus around climate action. The artificial island therefore represents not only a technological project, but also a statement about how economic growth and environmental responsibility can coexist. Critics argue that large infrastructure initiatives always carry risks, yet Denmark's approach seeks to mitigate these concerns through transparency and long-term ecological monitoring. Understanding this environmental dimension reveals how the country's energy strategy aligns economic ambition with climate leadership, positioning Denmark as a model for balancing innovation with sustainability. Denmark's rise as an energy power may ultimately depend on proving that massive infrastructure projects can strengthen both the economy and the environment at the same time. Ultimately, Denmark's transformation into a renewable energy leader reflects a broader shift in how global power is defined in the 21st century. Instead of relying on fossil fuel reserves or massive domestic markets, Denmark built influence through innovation, cooperation, and long-term infrastructure planning. The artificial energy island represents the culmination of decades of investment in offshore wind, grid technology, and regional partnerships that turned a small country into a key player within Europe's energy future. While challenges remain, including financial risks, engineering complexity, and evolving geopolitical dynamics, the project highlights how strategic vision can reshape economic identity. Denmark's approach contrasts with traditional energy models dominated by resource extraction, demonstrating that technological leadership and network connectivity can create new forms of influence. By positioning itself as a hub for renewable power distribution, the country strengthens both its domestic economy and its role within Europe's energy landscape. Critics continue to debate whether such ambitious projects can deliver promised benefits quickly enough, yet the broader trend toward interconnected renewable networks suggests that Denmark's strategy aligns with long-term global shifts. The energy island symbolizes a future where infrastructure determines power more than natural resources alone, redefining what it means to be an energy superpower. Understanding this transformation reveals that Denmark's rise is less about a single project and more about a systemic evolution shaped by policy consistency, industrial expertise, and environmental commitment. As Europe navigates energy transition challenges, Denmark's model offers insight into how smaller nations can influence large-scale change through coordination rather than scale alone. Denmark's energy island may be only the beginning of a new era, where influence comes from building networks that connect nations through renewable power rather than controlling fossil fuel reserves. Denmark's Energy Island project also highlights the broader economic ripple effects that large-scale renewable infrastructure can create across Europe's supply chains. Building offshore hubs requires specialized vessels, advanced materials, digital monitoring systems, and skilled labor generating demand across multiple industries beyond the energy sector itself. Shipbuilders, cable manufacturers, engineering consultancies, and software developers all become part of a growing ecosystem linked to renewable expansion. This interconnected network strengthens regional economic integration because companies from different countries collaborate on shared infrastructure goals. Denmark's strategy reflects an understanding that energy transition is not only about producing electricity, but about reshaping industrial value chains towards sustainability. European Union funding programs and climate initiatives further accelerate investment by aligning national projects with continental policy frameworks. As supply chains adapt to renewable infrastructure, new opportunities emerge for innovation in battery storage, hydrogen production, and smart grid technology. These developments encourage research partnerships between universities and private firms, reinforcing Europe's ambition to remain competitive in the global green economy. However, rapid growth also introduces challenges related to workforce training and resource availability, particularly as demand for specialized engineers and technicians increases. Denmark addresses this by expanding vocational education programs and international collaboration, ensuring that the transition creates long-term employment opportunities rather than short-term construction booms. The artificial island therefore functions as a catalyst for industrial transformation, influencing sectors far beyond energy generation itself. Understanding these ripple effects reveals how renewable infrastructure can drive broader economic change, positioning Denmark at the center of a continental shift towards sustainable growth. The real impact of Denmark's energy island may be measured not only in megawatts, but in how it reshapes Europe's industrial future through interconnected innovation and shared investment across borders. In the end, Denmark's rise as a new energy leader reflects more than a single ambitious project or a temporary shift in policy. It represents a long-term transformation in how smaller nations can influence global systems through specialization, cooperation, and technological leadership. The artificial energy island symbolizes a future where power is measured not by resource ownership, but by the ability to connect networks, balance energy flows, and coordinate international partnerships. Denmark's strategy shows how consistent policy direction, public support for sustainability, and industrial innovation can turn geographic limitations into strategic advantages. While uncertainties remain regarding costs, timelines, and evolving energy markets, the broader vision aligns with Europe's transition toward renewable independence. The project demonstrates how infrastructure decisions today can shape economic resilience for decades, redefining what it means to be an energy superpower in a world moving beyond fossil fuels. Denmark does not rely on scale or population size to drive influence. Instead, it builds relevance through expertise and collaboration, proving that leadership in the energy transition depends on systems thinking rather than traditional dominance. As countries worldwide seek pathways toward cleaner and more secure energy futures, the artificial island offers a blueprint for integrating technology, policy, and environmental goals into a cohesive strategy. Whether the project ultimately meets every expectation or evolves through future adjustments, it already highlights a new model of energy development built around shared networks and regional cooperation. Understanding Denmark's journey reveals that the future of energy may belong to those who design connections rather than those who control resources, reshaping global power structures in ways still unfolding across continents today. Denmark's energy island may mark the moment when influence shifted from owning energy to orchestrating the systems that distribute it across an interconnected world.